Dust billowed, tensions soared. The air was thick with anticipation as if the very ground beneath their feet was holding its breath. This was no ordinary day in Kleinfontein. The usually quiet, dusty roads were now the stage for a confrontation that had been brewing for years. The dust clouds rising from the ground seemed to symbolize the unsettled nature of the conflict about to unfold. The red tide surged forward, a sea of determined faces and raised fists. The economic freedom fighters, clad in their signature red uniforms, moved as one, their chants echoing through the air. They were not just marching, they were making a statement, a declaration of their intent to challenge the status quo. The energy was palpable, a force that seemed to grow with every step they took, met by a wall of defiance. The residents of Kleinfontein stood their ground, a line of resolute faces staring back at the advancing crowd. They were outnumbered, but their determination was unwavering. This was their home, their sanctuary, and they were prepared to defend it. The tension between the two groups was almost tangible, a silent battle of wills playing out in the dusty streets. The EFF had arrived in Kleinfontein, and South Africa held its breath. This small settlement, usually a footnote in the larger narrative of the nation, was now at the center of a storm. The aerial view of the town showed a community on edge, every corner filled with people waiting to see what would happen next. The world was watching, and the stakes were high. This wasn't just about land, it was about much more than that. It was about history, identity, and the future of the Rainbow Nation. The land was a symbol, a representation of deeper issues that had been simmering for decades. The historical monuments and diverse landscapes of South Africa told a story of a nation grappling with its past and trying to forge a new path forward. It was about history, identity, and the future of the Rainbow Nation. This wasn't Orania, this was different. Kleinfontein represented a unique chapter in South Africa's ongoing story. The contrasting scenes of Orania and Kleinfontein highlighted the complexities of the nation's identity. The Rainbow Nation flag fluttered in the wind, a reminder of the ideals that South Africa aspired to, even as it struggled with the realities on the ground. Kleinfontein, a small Afrikaner enclave, found itself at the heart of a storm. This quaint settlement, with its traditional architecture and rural charm, was now a battleground. The residents had built their lives here, creating a community that reflected their values and heritage, but now, they were being asked to change, to open their gates and integrate with a broader society that they felt had often overlooked them. The EFF's demand was clear: open the gates, dismantle your structures, and integrate. The leaders of the movement stood at the forefront, their voices ringing out with conviction. They called for an end to the separation, for a new beginning where all South Africans could share in the nation's wealth and opportunities. The banners they carried were not just signs, they were symbols of a larger struggle for equality and justice. The response? A resounding no. The residents of Kleinfontein were not ready to give up their way of life. They shook their heads, their faces set in defiance. The symbolic no-entry sign was a clear message. They would not be swayed. This was their home, their land, and they were determined to protect it. The clash of ideals was stark, a reflection of the broader tensions within South African society. Kleinfontein, they argued, was built on private property, a testament to their heritage and self-reliance. The residents pointed to the private property signs, emphasizing their right to live as they chose. Their homes, with their traditional Afrikaner designs, were more than just buildings. They were symbols of a culture and a way of life that they were proud of. They saw themselves as self-reliant, a community that had built something unique and valuable. The stage was set for a showdown, a microcosm of South Africa's ongoing struggle with its past. The tense standoff scene captured the essence of the conflict. The symbolic scales of justice reminded everyone that this was about more than just a single settlement. It was about the broader issues of fairness, equality, and reconciliation. The historical struggle imagery served as a backdrop, a reminder of the long and difficult journey that South Africa had been on and the challenges that still lay ahead. To understand Kleinfontein and Orania, we must journey back in time to the era of apartheid in South Africa. These towns have deep roots that stretch back to a time of intense social and political upheaval. Both towns emerged from the ashes of apartheid, a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination that existed in South Africa from 1948 until the early 1990s. Born from a desire to preserve Afrikaner culture and identity, these towns became symbols of a community's struggle to maintain its heritage in a rapidly changing world. They were havens, some would say, from the perceived threats of a changing South Africa. As the country moved towards a more inclusive society, some Afrikaners felt the need to create spaces where their traditions and way of life could be safeguarded. Orania, established in 1991, took a more radical approach. This town declared itself independent. aiming to create a self-sustaining community that adhered strictly to Afrikaner nationalism. The residents of Orania embraced a strict interpretation of Afrikaner nationalism, which included a strong emphasis on self-reliance and cultural preservation. They sought to build a community that was economically independent and culturally homogeneous. This approach was not without controversy, as it often led to accusations of isolationism and exclusion. However, the people of Orania remained steadfast in their mission, believing that their way of life was worth preserving at all costs. Kleinfontein, founded in 1992, adopted a softer stance. While still focused on preserving Afrikaner culture, Kleinfontein placed a greater emphasis on community living and self-sufficiency. The residents of Kleinfontein worked together to create a self-sustaining community that could thrive independently. They focused on agriculture, local businesses, and communal activities to foster a sense of unity and purpose. Unlike Orania, Kleinfontein engaged more openly with the broader South African society. They believed that while it was important to preserve their cultural identity, it was equally important to build bridges and foster understanding with other communities. This approach allowed Kleinfontein to maintain its cultural heritage while also contributing to the larger South African mosaic. While both towns shared a common origin, their paths diverged over time. Orania became synonymous with exclusivity, its gates closed to non-whites, its policies a stark reminder of South Africa's segregated past. Kleinfontein, on the other hand, cultivated a more inclusive image, welcoming visitors and engaging in limited economic activities with outsiders. However, critics argued that this was merely a facade, that the town's commitment to inclusivity remained superficial. The EFF's actions in Kleinfontein were not random. They were calculated moves on the political chessboard. After their failed attempt to penetrate Orania in 2015, the EFF recognized Kleinfontein's vulnerability. By targeting Kleinfontein, the EFF sought to achieve multiple objectives: land redistribution, dismantling symbols of apartheid-era exclusivity, and galvanizing their support base. Their message was clear: the time for reconciliation was over, the time for economic justice had arrived. Section 5. Land, Identity, and Power. The Stakes of the Struggle. The events in Kleinfontein went beyond a simple land dispute. They were a microcosm of the broader tensions that have simmered in South Africa for decades. The struggle for land is deeply intertwined with issues of identity, history, and power. In Kleinfontein, these issues came to a head, revealing the raw nerves of a nation still grappling with its past. They exposed the raw nerves of South Africa's post-apartheid reality. The country, though officially free from the shackles of apartheid, still bears the scars of its divisive history. The urban landscapes, bustling with diversity, stand in stark contrast to the rural areas where the legacy of segregation is still palpable. The mixed-race communities in cities symbolize hope and progress, yet the underlying tensions remain. For the EFF, land redistribution was non-negotiable, a matter of restoring dignity and economic power to the black majority. The Economic Freedom Fighters, a radical and militant group, saw land as the ultimate symbol of freedom and justice. Their rallies, filled with fervor and determination, echoed the cries of a people long denied their rightful inheritance. Land or death was not just a slogan, it was a declaration of their unwavering resolve. For Kleinfontein's residents, their town represented their heritage, a place where they could live according to their values. The predominantly Afrikaans community viewed their settlement as a sanctuary, a place where they could preserve their culture and traditions. The quiet suburban streets, the families enjoying the parks, and the traditional houses all painted a picture of a community deeply rooted in its past. They argued that they had bought the land legally and had a right to determine their own destiny. The residents of Kleinfontein believed in the sanctity of their legal agreements. They saw their town as a legitimate and lawful expression of their right to self-determination. Town hall meetings were filled with passionate debates as they defended their right to live according to their values and beliefs. The clash highlighted the complexities of reconciliation and the enduring legacy of apartheid. The monuments and murals serve as stark reminders of a painful history that cannot be easily erased. Reconciliation events, though filled with hope, often reveal the deep-seated wounds that still need healing. The struggle in Kleinfontein is a testament to the ongoing journey towards true equality and understanding in South Africa. Section 6. A nation divided fault lines in the Rainbow Nation. The standoff in Kleinfontein served as a stark reminder of the deep divisions that still plague South African society. The Rainbow Nation, it seemed, was fraying at the edges. The incident ignited a firestorm of debate, exposing the fault lines of race, identity, and belonging. It forced South Africans to confront uncomfortable truths about their past and the challenges of building a truly inclusive society. Section 7. The calm before the storm, an uncertain future. In the aftermath of the standoff, an uneasy calm settled over Kleinfontein. The EFF's message had been delivered, but the underlying issues remained unresolved. The future of the town, and indeed of South Africa itself, hung in the balance. Would Kleinfontein's gates eventually be forced open, its residents integrated into the wider South African society? Or would it remain an island of exclusivity, a testament to the enduring legacy of apartheid? Only time would tell. Section 8. Bridges or barricades towards a shared destiny. The events in Kleinfontein presented a crossroads for South Africa. One path led to further division, resentment, and conflict. The other, more challenging path required dialogue, empathy, and a shared vision for the future. Building bridges of understanding between communities, addressing historical injustices, and fostering a sense of shared national identity were crucial steps towards healing the wounds of the past. Section 9. A time for dialogue, healing the wounds of history. The Kleinfontein drama was a wake-up call for South Africa. It highlighted the urgent need for honest conversations about race, identity, and belonging. It underscored the importance of addressing the root causes of inequality and injustice. South Africa's journey towards healing and reconciliation would be long and arduous, but by embracing dialogue, empathy, and a shared commitment to building a just and equitable